Before I start this video, make sure to use my TCG Player affiliate link down below in the description. Also, if you do want to support the channel even further, consider becoming a patron. There are some great benefits including giveaways, early access to videos, and can be featured in gameplay videos in the future. For today's patron shoutout, I'd like to thank Sean Harvey for being a patron. I can't thank you enough for becoming a patron. And with that out of the way, let's get into today's video.
My God, Becky, look at her butt. It is so big. She looks.
Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Devin coming back at you with another video today on Pub Stomp MTG, and in this video today I wanted to talk about this amazing creature with the pride of the whole Clade. This is probably one of the most outrageous legendary creatures that I've ever seen. Honestly, it looks absolutely insane. The Simic has done well with their monstrous creation. It does have the look of an unset card, having the typing of crocodile, elk, and turtle. What a weird combination of creature types. Of course, the Simic are known to have all these strange creature types just mixed together, and I'm absolutely all for it. So let's read the card. So for 10 and a green, so 11 mana total, this spell will cost X less to cast, where X is the total toughness of creatures you control. So very similar to Galta. It does have Defender, and you can pay 2 and 2 blue until end of turn. Target creature you control gets +1, +0, and gains. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw cards equal to its toughness, and it can attack as though it didn't have Defender. Also, it does have a power and toughness of 2 and 15. So hold up really quick. If you pay into that ability, you swing it with Pride of the Whole Clade, you could draw 15 cards off of it. Yeah, this is going to be absolutely insane and definitely one that we can break. So of course, an auto include I did want to mention straight out of the gate is Training Grounds. This is the first card that I did think about with Pride of the Whole Clade. Training Grounds will essentially reduce the cost to just 2 blue pips, which is absolutely incredible. Also, another thing that I did think about that I'm pretty sure I'm right on, let me know down below in the comments if I'm wrong. You could use this activated ability multiple times on the same creature, say for example on this commander specifically, because it's target creature, any target creature including this one. If you do have 8 mana lying around, you could pay it into this ability so that you could give it +2, +0, and also have the ability twice where you could essentially draw 30 cards off of this. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that's the right way it does go because it gains that ability twice. So if that's true, this commander is absolutely cracked. What an amazing commander to go around, especially with that Defender theme. I know a lot of Arcades, the strategist players, are just drooling over this card because this is absolutely an auto include in the deck. However, we're here to talk about the Pride of the Whole Clade as a commander, and so let's dive into the deck. So as Sir Mix-a-Lot would say, I like big butts and I cannot lie. And so does our commander, and of course we do want to add a lot of different cards that have big butts in our deck. For example, a little one I did want to mention was Walking Bulwark. So for 1 mana, you do have an 0/3 with Defender, but most importantly, it does have that activated ability of paying 2 colorless mana. Until end of turn, target creature with Defender gains haste. Also, it can attack as though it didn't have Defender, and it assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. So of course with our commander, that'll be 15 damage that we can inflict to our opponents. And of course with our commander having 15 toughness, it's just 2 swings away for commander lethal damage. Another similar card I did want to bring your attention to is Bedrock Tortoise. For 3 and a green, we do have an 0/6, but what really makes this impactful is the fact that it has as long as it's your turn, creatures you control have hexproof, so that does include itself. So what's very nice about this, if you're swinging away with your commander, you decide to activate that ability, you don't have to worry about somebody trying to remove it in the process. Of course, another benefit that it does have, which is pretty noticeable, is each creature you control with toughness greater than its power assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. So again, very similar to the previous card, making our commander deal 15 damage instead of the 2 damage. I did in fact want to bring a god into the situation with Krufix, God of Horizons. Of course, he does have a toughness of 7/4, which is really good. However, in most situations, we may just get a lot of insane card draw with our commander, potentially drawing 15 cards. We want to have all those cards in our hand, so we can take advantage of that ability of you have no maximum hand size, so that by itself is good. Of course, having the ability to store extra mana is pretty good, but when I first saw this commander, I immediately thought of Charix the Raging Isle, mainly because it has one of the biggest butts in the game, having a 17 toughness. Plus, it does essentially have Ward 2. This was before Ward was even a mechanic. Also, I really feel like we don't need to worry about that other ability. Maybe there's some certain situations where you want to focus on buffing him up so that you can deal some combat damage, but again, if we use our commander's ability to just give this +1, we can still go for damage and potentially potentially draw 17 cards. All just for 4 mana, so that, by the way, is really good. Speaking of another very good card I do want to add to the deck, I previously mentioned her, and that's Ghalta Primal Hunger. I feel like this is obviously a great include because it is a 12/12 body. We could swing in, it does have trample, and we could potentially get 12 card draw. I will say there's possibly a problem with Ghalta though, is the fact that we're going to have a lot of cards in our deck that will have a lot of toughness, but might not have a lot of power, so in my opinion this is a little debatable to add into the deck. However, what's not debatable is the Pandra Hunger Dominus, and this is the biggest reason why. At the beginning of each combat, double the power and toughness of each creature you control until end of turn. So of course with our commander that does mean that we'll have 30 toughness, we could swing away, potentially draw 30 cards. Plus it does mean each creature we do control on the battlefield, so that does include Zapandrel, so it'll become a 8/12. Plus I feel like it can be a great blocker and also a great attacker because it will give itself indestructible as long as we sacrifice 2 other creatures and we pay into that cost. So again, we can swing away with this, potentially draw 12 cards if we use our commander's ability into it. Of course I do want to focus on the next part of my video, and that's talking about toughness. So there's a lot of cards that benefit us off of having big creatures on the battlefield. So the first card I do want to bring your attention to is Assault Formation. So just for 2 mana, each creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. That by itself is great. Our commander is a 2/15, so we could just swing in for 15 damage potentially. Also, we could just pay that green mana just so that a defender can attack. Also, if we really wanted to, we could pump up our commander's toughness by using that second ability so that we could potentially get more card draw if 15 cards isn't enough. Next up, this one is more cute with Sheltering Word. So for 2 mana, target creature you control gains hexproof until end of turn. You gain life equal to that creature's toughness, so of course this is mainly to protect our commander just in case someone tries to spot remove it. It'll just gain hexproof, and on top of that we might gain a lot of life, potentially 15 if we target our commander. So I do know Heroic Intervention is better than this, however I just like the aspect that it focuses on toughness. Another card that will gain you life that I did want to mention is Verdant Sun's Avatar. I feel like this is great because whenever it or another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain life equal to that creature's toughness. So easily with this one, if we just put our commander on the battlefield and maybe some other big beefy creatures on the battlefield with a lot of toughness, we could just gain a bunch of life off of that. Another fantastic include I did want to mention is Towering Titan. So for 6 mana, enters the battlefield with X/1 counters on it, where X is the total toughness of other creatures you control. So it does mean total toughness. Say for example we have our commander out that has 15 toughness and we have another creature with 6 toughness on the battlefield. This could enter the battlefield as a 21/21. Plus if we do want to ensure some damage and we do have an extra defender on the battlefield, all creatures will gain trample until end of turn when we do sacrifice that defender. I don't know if we want to sacrifice our commander, maybe another defender we just put on the battlefield. Great card otherwise in the deck. But if you really want to focus on toughness, you can get the most out of it with these 2 spells with Majestic Genesis and Last March of the Ents. I'll tell you what, our commander will probably abuse this the most out of any other commander that I've ever seen. With Majestic Genesis for 8 mana, reveal the top X cards of your library where X is the greatest mana value of a commander you own on the battlefield or in the command zone. Since our commander does have 11 mana value, this is going to be easy to abuse. Following that, you may put any number of permanent cards from among them onto the battlefield and put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So obviously you are going to be revealing 11 cards, and if they're all permanents, you're going to be putting 11 permanents on the battlefield. This is absolutely incredible, but I feel like Last March of the Ents is even better. It does have the factor of this spell can't be countered. You draw cards equal to the greatest toughness among creatures you control, so if we do have our commander out on the battlefield, it'll be 15 toughness, so we'll draw 15 cards. And then we put any number of creature cards from your hand onto the battlefield. Of course, I feel like Majestic Genesis has a better ceiling, putting any permanent on the battlefield. However, Last March of the Ents has a better floor, where easily you could put a lot of creatures on the battlefield and potentially have a lot of cards in your hand. However, to be fair, if I had either one of these in my hand, I feel like I could get really great value out of them. So these are must includes, and I mean absolute must includes in the deck. Speaking of must includes, I did also want to talk about card draw because of course with our commander we can have the potential of drawing a lot of cards. So of course we absolutely need to take advantage of that. However, we do want to make sure our commander does go in for combat damage. Access Tunnel and Rogue's Passage are easy includes. With our commander having power 2 and pumping it up to a power 3, we could easily have it be unblockable with Access Tunnel, but obviously in my opinion these are kind of no-brainers in the deck so that we can swing in, get some card draw. Another option you may want to consider is Bilbo's Ring. This will provide hexproof to our commander as long as it's our turn. We will also draw a card off of it if our creature attacks alone, but most importantly this creature can't be blocked, and that's what really really matters with this. Of course, we do want to have hexproof for our commander when we swing in so that they can't use target removal. But it can't be blocked, so that means we will possibly drop 15 cards off our commander specifically. Another way we can make sure our commander is unblockable is by using Reverse the Polarity. So 3 mana for this isn't the best, but you are getting the versatility of countering all other spells, switching creatures' power and toughness until end of turn, or creatures can't be blocked this turn. I do feel like this is doing a little bit of everything what we want to do in this deck. If we do want to switch the power and toughness of our commander, we could easily do so that we can make it a 15-2, but that could be susceptible to lightning bolts, so I wouldn't really pick that option unless you're really going in for commander damage. I'd really mainly focus on it as a counter spell or giving your creatures unblockable. So if we do make our commander unblockable, we do have a lot of card draw coming our way. We could even take advantage of that card draw by using cards like Ominous Sea. I feel like this is a very underrated card just for 2 mana. Whenever you draw a card, you put a foreshadow counter on Ominous Seas. You remove 8 foreshadow counters from Ominous Seas and create an 8/8 blue Kraken creature token. And you could also cycle this too if you feel like you don't need it at the moment. Of course, by each turn you will draw a card, so you'll always put a counter on this regardless, but if you do swing in with your commander, activate its ability, draw 15 cards when you deal combat damage, you could put 15 foreshadow counters on Ominous Seas. And the benefit of all this is you don't have to remove the counters right away. You could just kind of hold tight, find the right situation, or after your opponent's end step before your turn, you could just make an 8/8 right away. Or if you don't have any blockers, you could just remove the counters to make an 8/8 blocker out of nowhere. So again, you do need a little patience off of this, but trust me, when it goes off, it'll go off. Another way we could abuse the card draw is by using cards like Psychic Corrosion, Teferi's Tutelage, and Jace's Erasure. I feel like these are a little debatable. You don't need to add these in the deck. I thought these would be a nice touch to add an extra win con in the deck because we're drawing an enormous amount of cards with our commander, potentially drawing 15 cards in one swing. We could make each opponent mill 30 cards from their library into the graveyard with Psychic Corrosion and Teferi's Tutelage. With Jace's Erasure, it's a little different. Obviously, it focuses on a single player and will only mill 1 card instead of 2 cards. Another way we could take advantage of that insane card draw with our commander is using a card like Teferi Temporal Pilgrim. Mainly because of that static ability, whenever you draw a card, you put a loyalty counter on Teferi Temporal Pilgrim. So if you draw 15 cards with your commander, you could put 15 loyalty counters on Teferi. Plus, as -2 is very useful to our commander. You create a 2/2 blue spirit creature token with vigilance, and whenever you draw a card, you put a 1/1 counter on this creature. Of course, if we draw 15 cards with our commander, we could put 16 1/1 counters on that spirit token. And to be quite honest, we could use that ultimate multiple times by essentially Cyclonic Rifting a opponent. Obviously, this is not a true Cyclonic Rift. It has that ability: target opponent chooses a permanent they control and return it to its owner's hand. Then they shuffle each non-land permanent they control into their owner's library. I feel like this ultimate is incredible with our commander. The main use out of it is, of course, bouncing all their creatures into their library. Next turn, we could attack that same person, draw 15 cards with our commander, put 15 loyalty counters on Teferi Temporal Pilgrim, bounce another player's board, then swing at them and repeat the process, essentially trying to win the game at that point. However, another great win con I would like to highlight is Psychosis Crawler. So this one is a little more obvious than the rest because whenever you draw a card, each opponent loses 1 life. Again, going to our commander, we swing in with our commander, draw 15 cards, we make each opponent lose 15 life. Yep, that could be game ending in most instances. Obviously, if you do have this and your commander out on the battlefield, most likely this is going to be in the end game where a lot of people don't have any life, so 1 swing away could be good game for everybody. Also, one worry I do have about this deck is you might draw too much cards, potentially drawing your whole entire library, so I would recommend one of these titans like Ulamog or Kozilek, mainly because it has that last ability. Whenever it's put into the graveyard from anywhere, its owner shuffles their graveyard into their library. So I would recommend just one of these, maybe not 2 of these, so either one. I feel like Ulamog might be the better choice because you can destroy a target permanent. So if your library is getting a little low and you do have a lot of cards in your graveyard, after you drew a lot of cards off of your commander, you could just discard this and shuffle your graveyard into your library. Of course, this may be tricky with a lot of those Reliquary Tower type effects where you don't have any maximum hand size, but in some instances it might be worth it adding it into the deck so that you don't deck yourself. But if you are in that sticky situation of almost decking yourself, you could actually win the game off of some situations. You could potentially win the game with Lab Laboratory Maniac. So I feel like this could be obviously a great win con in the deck with our commander. If the game is going kind of long and we have about 50 cards in our library, we could put Laboratory Maniac on the battlefield. And if we do have a lot of mana lying around, say for example, we do have 16 mana on the battlefield, which obviously we're in Simic, so that's very easy to do. If somebody's wide open and use that activated ability 4 times, giving our commander +4/+0, making it a 6/15, we could swing away at that wide open opponent and draw 60 cards. So of course with Laboratory Maniac, we are trying to draw cards, but there's no cards in our library. After trying to draw 60 cards with our 50 card library, we would win the game. So obviously this is a made up scenario. A lot of situational things can happen. This is just something that I made up on the spot, but that is one potential way you can win the game. Obviously you can win the game with Thassa's Oracle, but I'm not even adding that into the list. However, that's going to do it for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming by and watching this video on this very exciting commander, the Pride of Whole Clade. This is a very unique take on Simic. Obviously you're still doing the Simic things of drawing cards, but it focuses on that defender mechanic. This could also be just reduced to 1 green mana, so in a way this can evade commander attacks. That is dependent on how much toughness you do have on the board though. But honestly, there's so much things going for this commander. Obviously the elephant in the room of being a crocodile elk turtle is incredible, but it can be very powerful, drawing you potentially a lot of cards. But I would love to hear from you. What are your thoughts about this monstrosity? It is absolutely incredible, not gonna lie. I'm so tempted to build this, but recently I decided to be extra picky on what decks I do want to build because there's a lot of situations, especially in the past year, where I saw an interesting commander. I decided to build it, however, it was not to my liking, so I might have to play test this over and over again to see if I really want to build it in paper. But again, there are a lot of fun things going for this commander. Again, let me know down below, what are your thoughts and opinions about this commander? Is there any other commander you'd like to see me build around within this set? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Also, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and with that out of the way, thank you for stomping by.